Hi, I'm Megan.
And I'm Morgan, twins and hosts of M&M Chat, a monthly podcast that brings together our many commonalities: motherhood, farm life, fitness, chasing our passions, and Go Chat. It is our goal to create a show that is positive, real, and fun. Now, join us as we wrap up our Calming the Messy series. So, today is our December episode, the wrap up of the 2023 season. Megan, how are you feeling as we begin to wrap up this really fun series that we did? Each month was different in the topics, and we had so many great conversations. How are you feeling?
I am feeling really good, you guys. I cannot believe it is coming to an end. It seems like we were just talking about creating our vision boards. And so this year just went by so fast. But I am proud of just the work that we did diving into these different topics and even some of the behind the scenes stuff that we had to work on for our own mindset and our own wellness journey. Just even our house, our environment, like praying to God with the series that we did on like finding where we're going next and being okay with being in the in between places. We will go into that, like all of the different topics we had this year, and just kind of give you guys the highlights today and kind of recap. But we had a lot of conversations around those different categories, and I'm super proud of just the work that we did. How do you feel about it, Morgan?
I agree. When we start to break it down, like as we were preparing for this episode, it is amazing all of the different topics that we were able to touch on throughout the year. And I do think it was an overall, like, kind of the overarching, I guess, theme of the series was to calm the different areas in our life. And through the different months and the different topics, I feel like we were able to touch on so many great points that can benefit us going forward, to just reflect, to think about these things. And it's not about perfection, but it's about consistency. And how are we feeling in our lives? I was just listening to an Instagram reel earlier today, and she said she has a new boyfriend, in the person who I was listening to. And she said one of the things she loves about him is that he's just so positive and finds joy in everyday life, and like makes things that might seem not very um
Glamorous,
fancy, like glamorous. Yeah, that's a good word. Even making breakfast in the morning and stuff like that. How can you make it more special? How can you make moments of reading to your kids at bedtime, even though you're exhausted? How can you put a little bit more emphasis onto like the text and like changing your voices up and things? It was a good reminder that even though in our lives we can sometimes just want to take a big sigh, and I do that often, don't get me wrong. But out of the day, it's kind of that 80/20 rule, kind of same with food, of our thoughts on that. How can we be showing up as the best version of ourselves 80% of the time?
I agree with that. I feel like if you focus on the things that are messy, the things that are not going right, or the hard stuff, like you said, there are many times the other day where we want to sigh or be like, all right. But like quickly having that thought of this is going to be tough, but then knowing that you can do hard things and switching it around and finding the joy within it and just taking a look around and being like, you know what, this, even though is maybe not going exactly how I want it, those blessings within this moment, and I can focus on those instead of dwelling on the stuff that isn't going the way I want it to, or the stuff that's taking longer, or I'm exhausted and the stuff that I have to get done for the next day, those kind of things. Heading
Exactly.
into our highlights, the first one is wellness. So we had quite a few big topics on wellness in the beginning of the year, just starting and kicking us off with the new year, since a lot of people like to focus on their health in the new year. So what were kind of the key points that you thought were helpful when we talked about our wellness series?
One of the things that I have been doing for years now is a vision board. I started this when I started my flower business back in 2000. I think my first vision board I made was when I took the flower class. So I think it might have been 2018, 2019. And I've been doing a vision board ever since. And it's just, even though I might not look at the vision board that often throughout the year. It's a really good way for me to set intention for the upcoming year. What is my goals for this year? What do I hope to accomplish? But not even that. Like lately, it's been what do I want the year to feel like?
Mm-hmm.
Like so looking back at my vision board, even from like there's sometimes like we talk about when I first started the flower business and like before I had kids and stuff, I felt like I was like all hustle. Like, what can I do to grow this business? I didn't have a name yet. How can I create a brand? And now my vision board, as I am having children and I'm a full-time teacher and changing kind of um,
Your focus,
prioritizing,
yeah.
like, yeah, focus. It's more on like creating peace and trying not to be as busy, even though our calendars fill up quickly. Uh, Focusing on those big needle moving points, like instead of focusing on everything with the flowers like I did in the beginning, I used to take every single order that came at me, now focusing on the homegrown flowers and the weddings and maybe a few classes here and there, and picking and choosing the things that matter most to me and that I find the most fulfillment out of. That way it keeps my schedule a little bit cleaner, and then also I'm really can give it my all to those few things. And I think that's also the way to look at like the rest of our life. Instead of trying to fit everything in, how can we make the most of the things that we are prioritizing because we only have so many hours in the day? Another one that I thought was a highlight from that first series was keeping it simple, which kind of goes with that same theme. Keeping things so instead of making things complicated or um, checking like having this big to-do list and you want to check everything off and you want to do it all like in the beginning of the year, like this the new year hits and you're like, I'm gonna jump into this like huge new resolution. No, like let's just make some small changes. Let's make it realistic so they actually stick throughout the year.
I agree with that. With wellness for sure. You want to take it like bit by bit, and the more that you show up, the more you're going to be confident in yourself and be able to stick to some of those healthier habits. Something that I noticed in our accountability group this year was I changed it. Instead of saying like you have to get 5 workouts in to meet this challenge, I said you get to decide what works for you and how many workouts you want to get in for the week. And I noticed some people said they wanted to get 3 in. If that's where they're at right now, that is perfect. I don't want them to try to get 6 and then not hit the goal and feel like they failed. If they're doing 0, 3 is amazing. So I agree with that 100%. Keeping it simple and starting where you're at, changing one health habit at a time and helping you walk towards that long time goal. Um, Another thing we said during that series that I felt kind of stayed with me throughout the year was small steps equal a big impact. It kind of goes right along with that. Take little baby steps, and pretty soon you've made a huge change in your life. Another one is being prepared. A trainer that we follow through Body is Autumn Calabrese. She always says, being prepared isn't half the battle, it is the battle. That what that quote means is that the hardest part about any kind of health habit is being prepared. So having a meal plan, planning out your workouts and putting your calendar on the fridge, planning outside time, making sure you have a water bottle that you can refill throughout the day. Being prepared is the battle. Once you're prepared, then it's easier to stick with those habits because you have it all ready to go.
That's one thing that I've really noticed with this um, ending the year strong. So if you caught our November episode, it was all about ending the year strong, and we talked about how we were dialing it in and refocusing. And even though we talked about wellness in the beginning of the year, now that it's getting towards the end of the year, how has it come full circle? And honestly, like you said, being prepared. Now that we've done the November challenge, we're working on Fitness for December and then into the new year with new year goals and resolutions and things and the vision board. I feel like 3 months of dialing it in has really helped me to go back to meal prepping. And I've always meal prepped, but being intentional about, okay, am I adding in different veggies? Am I getting in enough protein? Am I meeting my water goal and having the tracker on the fridge? It's not overwhelming because it's just 6 steps, which we're going to talk about here in a little while, but making sure that you're trying to reach those 6 goals throughout the week. And it's not about perfection, but just looking at the tracker and saying, okay, yesterday I did not hit my water goal and I felt kind of dehydrated. So today I'm going to try to fill my water bottle up one more time. So I think just being prepared, having a grocery list. I've been starting to do grocery pickup as much as I love buying groceries because I love picking out my own produce. Dean enjoys it. Right now, pickup has just been a game changer, honestly,
Yes.
especially with the holidays, because you can be like, oh, I forgot to order the ingredients for the recipe I'm supposed to make for Saturday's Christmas. Here we go, pickup line, here I come. And I don't know why I took so long to jump on that bandwagon. It is a nice thing to have in your toolbox.
Isn't that funny how sometimes we drag our feet when change, like with any kind of change, and people started doing this on this grocery pickup, and I was like, that's just lazy. That's like get into the store and do it yourself. And it's like, no, it's not lazy. It's people are busy, and if it's gonna help make your life easier, by all means, go and do it. And I've been
Yes.
doing it too now. Like, yeah, it took me a while to get on the bandwagon, and now I'm like, now I know why everybody did it.
Yeah. And it helps you spend less money too because you can see what's in your cart and you're not
Yeah.
buying random things from the shelves like, oh, hey, that looks good.
I do have a rant though, and I've actually thought of like a solution of this. My rant is you order something, and usually they tell you if there's something you want to replace it with. A couple times lately, I don't know if they're too busy or what, but there's been a couple times lately where they don't tell me that they're out of it and they just don't give it to me. And so this time I needed popcorn because I'm making like festive popcorn with like white chocolate and sprinkles and chocolate chips and stuff in it. And the main ingredient is popcorn, and they didn't give me the popcorn. I got home and I was like, where's the popcorn? This is like the one reason why I did groceries today. And I went and looked at my order history and it said it wasn't there. It was out of stock. And so my rant is they should always tell you when something's out of stock. But my solution to that is on before I go and pick up the groceries, they usually have it all done for you and they say it's been charged. I need to look on there ahead of time and say like, okay, these two things were out of stock, and then I can decide if I want to run into the store and get something to replace it with.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah,
it's
that's
just
a good
like
tip.
I got home and I was like, man, like now I have to run back into town sometime and grab it. Um,
Yeah. Yeah, that's a
so
good tip.
pros and
And
cons.
yeah. Another thing that we wanted to chat about in this first highlight is our intentions. So as we head into the new year, what are our personal intentions? Out of those 6 categories that I mentioned, the 6 that are kind of the most important, I would say, to Megan and I, and then also to our accountability group, the ones that we're spending the most time focusing on, I feel like it is um the total body, like mind, soul, nutrition. It kind of combines everything into one. So the 6 categories is movement, nutrition, fresh air, mindset, sleep, and water. And I feel like this year we added fresh air and sleep. Prior to that, we really didn't focus on those as much, but it really does make a difference how much sleep you're getting. And also this time of year, when it gets dark at 5 o'clock, they say seasonal blues and things like that. Fresh air is just so important for our soul and for our mindset and for our body. I feel like even
Vitamin
skin
D.
and yes, and vitamin D, skin and vitamins and the things that are nourishing our body. Fresh air is a huge component of that. And you just feel so much more like if you go on a walk after supper or you go on a walk on the weekends, you come in and you just feel accomplished.
Yes. And they say, um, with like flu season and even just all of the things that float around inside our houses. Whether it be now, there's all this research on different fragrances and cleaning products and um, just like candles and just different things that you are like, I don't even know for sure if this is good for me or not. Fresh air, it like gives you time outside where you're breathing just clean air and you don't have to worry about like the germs that are inside or having it be too like not humid or humid enough, and it just gives you time to be like, okay, I'm gonna just get some clean air into my lungs.
Filtering it out.
Yes. Um, and so my goal definitely would be to focus more on that in the new year. If we had to pick one thing from this wellness to keep kind of focusing on and keeping on forefront of our mind, I get about twice a week. I do really good because I have recess duty. But not everybody is a teacher and gets recess duty. So I'm like, when does everybody else get fresh air? So my thoughts are as it gets, I mean, the winter is hard, but as it gets nicer and as we start heading in to spring, hopefully sooner rather than later, then I can get outside and walk Cash more, take Andrew with me, or just get outside and play fetch and go outside and help do chores more with you guys out on the farm and just getting more fresh air because I feel like that has been a game changer, just like you said, mentally and for to avoid that like seasonal depression.
hmm hmm Yeah, fresh air is one for me too. I think for me specifically, going into the new year with baby Hibbs, due date being in February, I feel like it's a perfect time. Spring is coming. It's a perfect time to focus on renourishing my body, fueling for energy and hormone health. After having Dean, I noticed that I just felt kind of depleted of nutrients with being pregnant and then breastfeeding, and then now being pregnant and then finding out I was deficient in iron. I feel like this is just a good time to be prioritizing what proteins I'm eating, what healthy fats, healthy carbs, trying not to. I feel like I tend to drink half calf, but even like trying to limit how much caffeine I'm having, making sure that I'm feeling hydrated. So overall, how is food nourishing our bodies? And I think the challenge with um having a newborn is that sometimes we can put ourselves on the back burner and
Hmm.
we can just grab a granola bar or we can grab something quick or I'm gonna put something frozen in the oven because it's easier. But I also want to really prioritize Dean's health. And I feel like in the last couple months, I've been trying to do better as we've been dialing in these different challenges. But for a while there, and especially the start of the school year, it was kind of like whatever I could grab, whatever he would be willing to eat. And and we always sit down together at a table. So that's good. At least we're prioritizing like family time. But I really want to focus on like what nourishment is he getting because it can be hard sometimes to say no to the Paw Patrol yogurts and things like that that I know maybe have a little bit more sugar in them. So how can I be creative where he will still like the food, taste the food, and it's okay to have Paw Patrol yogurt in the fridge and have that too. But how can I add in like lately he's been liking my shakes, so I've been sneaking spinach in there so that way I know he's getting a veggie. So just being
Yeah.
intentional.
It was interesting because I want to play more with that too. Usually I chop all of Andrew's food up because he's not even two yet, and sometimes he still has trouble. Like the other day, he started choking on something he was eating, and so I just feel like it makes me nervous. But he never touches his vegetables, and so I'm like, how can I change this up a little bit for him? I cut some cucumbers and carrots into really thin slices where and it kept them longer so he could hold on to them and bite them. And usually I chop them into like little bites. And I did put a little ranch on his plate, but I was like, look, mommy's gonna dip it and take a bite. And then he copied and mimicked me, and he loved the cucumbers. He probably had two or three of the like sticks of them. And I was like, interesting. Okay, so I just gotta cut it in a different way.
That's a good tip. I saw that on the feeding the baby-led weaning, but I haven't done that since Dean was in that stage. I did that a while for a while, but I have a hard time getting Dean to eat raw veggies too. So that's a really good idea.
Yeah, just cutting it differently. Or I've even heard somebody say their kid never eats sandwiches, but then as soon as they smashed it really like close and really
And
smashed it down so it wasn't so thick, they ate it no problem. I'm like,
yeah,
hmm.
interesting.
Yeah, interesting. All right, guys, our next series that we focused on this year was just creating a calm and peaceful home. And so some of the highlights from that series, we really focused on how we want our home to feel. And that can be whether it be like the design of the home and the decorations. Some people like a lot of things sitting around. Some people like it more clean and less sit around things, maybe not as much clutter. So just everybody is different, but making it where you feel comfortable and you want to be in your space, kind of having it be like your sanctuary. And something that I feel like this year I focused on was really making it so my home wasn't cluttered in the main living areas, but not stressing about some of those areas that people never see. So my office has kind of become an office slash storage room. And that was one of the things on my vision board was to declutter that room. And I never got to it, and that's okay. I shut the door and it's in that room. But
It'll
like
be
the
there
main,
next year.
it'll be there next year. And actually, like if we ever have another kid, we haven't built a house yet. So most likely that room would have to be cleaned out for another kid someday. So it would be cleaned out then. But I'm thinking like, okay, the main living area is picked up every night. I reset it. It's functional. It makes me feel good. I can sit on the couch, turn the lamp on, and not have it be cluttered. So just finding that contentment and finding some of your home is probably going to be where you really feel nice and peaceful in it, and some of your home may not be, but that's okay. It doesn't have to be the entire home. It doesn't have to be um perfect every single day because that's just not reality.
Yeah. Yeah. The next highlight there is reality versus picture perfect. And I think you touched on a lot of great points there. For me, like having a new house, I've been focusing on like, well, it's a new house. I need to make sure it's kept up and I need to make sure that I'm dusting and like there's no reason why the baseboards have dust on them already. Like we've only been living here since July. And I've been kind of hard on myself because I'm like, I told myself when I remove in, this is a brand new house. I'm going to keep it like spit, spot, spam, and it's gonna stay nice. Well, then Tyler's like, Morgan, you have a dog, a cat, a toddler. You do flowers for a business where sometimes you can't do it in the shop if it's cold out there, and you're doing it on the kitchen table. So you're dropping evergreen needles everywhere. He's like, you love to cook and bake and meal prep. So the kitchen's not going to always stay messy because you use a lot of dishes. And he's like, we were just talking about the other day, and he's like, it looks lived in. And we've talked about that on the
Hmm.
podcast that it's okay for it to look lived in. And like you said, but what are you comfortable with? So, like the other night, I hadn't cleaned in a couple weekends because of the holidays and wanting to do other things. Like on my stories, I posted, I had worked out that day, I had meal prepped, we had gone outside and done chores, we had gone to town and got groceries. The laundry did not get done though. The dishes did not get put away from the dishwasher. The counters did not get cleaned off from like the
Bringing
weekend. And
stuff in.
yeah. And I said, but that day, the things that were most important to me got done. And
Hmm.
so being okay with at the end of the day, like right now we're recording and um I have this little corner of my room that doesn't have laundry showing. And being okay with at the end of the day, as long as you got the things that were the most important to you done and to your best of your ability, the other things, it's okay that they're still there. And like you said, it's not always going to be HGTV, picture perfect. It's a work in progress. It's a house that's lived in. It's reality. But then also, if it is bugging you, like the other night, resetting. I went through and did a power clean. Tyler was in Dean's room with him playing, so they were out of like the main living room. I picked up all the toys, I swept, I vacuumed, I mopped, and I switched the laundry and everything, wiped all the counters, and it just made me feel so much better going to bed.
Yeah, sometimes having the house clean does make you feel better. It's kind of like working out, where you don't want to necessarily do it when you start, but then after you're in the groove and you're in the middle of it, you're like, oh, this needs clean. I'm gonna do that quick. Oh, this needs clean. And next thing you know, your goal was to clean for half hour, 45 minutes, and you've been cleaning for 2 hours. And
Yeah.
so, but then afterwards, you realize how good it feels, and you're like, oh, everything feels so fresh again. So just knowing that you feel good afterwards too. And if your laundry's put away, you feel good afterwards. So kind of depends on like your how you're feeling and your priorities for that day. And if you don't get it done, it'll be there tomorrow and not dwelling on it.
No.
Um, and the other thing before we move on to our faith series is just finding practical strategies that do help you. So finding those routines that help you stay organized, planning ahead, like we talked about with the wellness, um, making sure that things aren't getting lost at the end of the day. So in the morning, you're not scounging around trying to find things and get out the door. So just finding practical strategies that help you and maybe even some habits too that help you. I think I mentioned in this series, I was really struggling at night with dishes being in the sink, trying to cook, and then the dishwasher being clean and having to put those away. So, a new habit that I started was when I'm packing my lunch in the morning and making the coffee, I'm putting away the clean dishes. So then at night, I can just straight put them in the dishwasher. And
Hmm.
that has helped so much. So, finding a routine that helps kind of ease the stress a little bit.
I should try that one because that's been my thing lately is dishes take so much longer at night because you're having to put the clean ones away from the morning and your sink's full of your lunch dishes, your breakfast dishes, and then what you just cooked with for dinner.
Yeah.
Okay, you guys. We are moving on to series three, which was faith in the in-between spaces. So Megan and I were reading a book that was focused on how do you navigate in between spaces. I currently was kind of in between phases, so it was really relevant for me. Megan really talked about past experiences and then going forward, things that she might be in between with. So it was actually a really good conversation because I was kind of in the midst of it, and then Megan was kind of talking about things that she had experienced in the past and going forward. So the main takeaways from that one was trusting God's plan and timing. And it's not always when and how and what we want, but that doesn't mean that God's not answering it. So we actually had a Bible study that kind of corresponded with this as well in our community group. And it's just funny how God's timing works, how everything kind of connects. And it just really makes me think of that Garth Brooks song that it says unanswered prayers, where he really wanted to marry this person or date this person that he thought was high school sweetheart. And then God had other plans and he never ended up with that person. But he had said, God, if you just answer my prayers, then I will like do anything you want me to. And he thought his prayers were never answered. Then down the road, he married his wife. He fell in love. He found his soulmate. And he's like, wow, I didn't trust God's plan or God's timing, even though he had a bigger vision for me and knew who I was meant to be with. And it's just a really good reminder that just because God's not answering our prayer how we want or when we want our way or the highway, that doesn't mean that it's not getting answered. And God knows the pieces of the puzzle of how it's all going to fit together, and we don't, and we can't see that. So we just have to trust that even though we might go through hard seasons, that there's a purpose behind it.
Well, and sometimes I feel like we're afraid when they're in between stages of like, well, what if I choose the wrong path? Like, what if I go down this path and God was like, nope, you should have went down the other path. And then, but what if we go down that path and we regret it and we're like, nope, we should have gone down that path. And there was this movie, I don't know, remember what it was called, but I watched it one time. I think it was on Netflix. And it showed the girl's life if she went down this path or if she went down this path. And usually when you think of a movie like that, one is positive, one is negative, and it's like kind of like the Scrooge. It makes you think like, oh, this path is definitely the right one. this video was different. This video showed both paths and both had pros and cons, and God was able to use the person in both paths and was able to guide and be with the person in both paths no matter which one they took. And that just shows that you aren't going to choose the wrong path. Like God has the plan, and even if you choose a like we have our will, we have willpower, we have the power to choose. And so even if we go down this path and God was like, "No, I really wanted you to do that." He is going to walk that path for your good and still show you positive things and like have your life be the way that he wants and has planned for you down that path. So I feel like there's no wrong path. God's going to be with you either path that you take. So finding that contentment in either path that you go down, but then looking for those signs from God and trying to take the door that is open that he's making open for you and putting on your heart and just trying to listen to him to go down maybe that one path. But like I said, God can use you in both paths. And
I Oh, just to go off of that,
yeah.
I feel like sometimes we want these big signs, these big uh neon blinking
Mhm.
arrows showing which path. But I think it can be simple as a gut feeling towards something. Like if
Yeah.
something doesn't, like if you're applying for a job and it just doesn't quite feel like the right fit, or you are wanting to decide if you're moving or not, and you just get this like really excitement about the possibilities. Then it's like the gut feeling that you was maybe negative is maybe a sign, and then the excitement that you feel could also be a sign. And then something that's placed on your heart that might be like a passion of yours
Yes.
or a creativity towards something that is a sign, something that you can use God's talents that he provided you for his glory. It could be a sign. So it doesn't
Mhm.
have to be this big sign that we might be looking for. It could be something just as a feeling that we have. Or you're driving down the road and you see a sign um on the interstate that is about, oh, you're like, oh, I've never heard of that business before. And then it kind of puts an inkling in the back of your mind. So it could just be something that God places in front of you that you don't even realize how it connects.
Yep, I agree with that. Um, and something that we liked during that series was this is part of a quote that we um read in that episode was complacency is staying stagnant, but contentment is being satisfied with where God has placed you. So we don't want to be complacent and where we just kind of let things happen to us. We want to be doers and we want to use the things that God places in our life for the good of His glory and finding contentment in no matter what season that is. So even if it is a waiting season that's hard, trying to find joy and contentment through Him, not necessarily in your circumstances, but through Him.
That will take us to our last series, which was Calming the Messy through the end of the year. So we just did some fun ones. We had a fun one in October. We encourage you to go back and listen to the ones that were just kind of candid conversations.
And
In
they kind of
November,
had
we
to
took,
do with the season. So like school
yeah,
related, harvest, Halloween,
yeah.
winter.
November was ending the year strong. And as we wrap up Calming the Messy, Megan and I so much throughout the year have dedicated a lot of time to this podcast, but not maybe as much time as we would hope or wish that we could. So we've thought about logistics of the podcast. Like there's been times that we've questioned, like, do we continue doing the podcast? What does this look like going forward? What is our goal and mission of the podcast? And there's a lot of logistics that go to it. We have to record it, we have to edit it, add it to YouTube, add it to Apple Podcasts, do graphics for
Promotion.
promotion. And it takes time and even planning the episodes. What are we going to talk about? How can it be content that you'll want to listen to that you'll get benefit from? And so the reason we continue to show up and that we will continue in the new year to strive to do is to be a resource that is positive that is fun to listen to, but that also connects us with all of you. So Megan and I both show up on Instagram quite a bit, and it can be a simple, short clip that really doesn't give you behind the scenes. And I feel like this podcast gives Megan and I a chance to catch up with the boys. Honestly, we don't get very much time to just chat because
No,
we'll
when we start
constantly,
chatting, then they get jealous and want to start chatting too.
yeah, constantly like, mom, mom, mom. And so this is a time for us to chat, and we hope that you find value in it as well.
Yeah, I'm excited going into the new year and continuing to talk about our main topics of motherhood, farm life, fitness, our careers, goal conversations. But I think our goal, instead of having series next year, is we are going to pick big hot topics or headlines or articles that have to do with our kind of main focus of our podcast and dive into those. And so each month might have a little bit of a different focus, but it will still be around the realm of what M&M chat is all about: motherhood, farm life, fitness, Christianity, all of those things that you guys know Morgan and I care so much about. So we are excited for 2024, and I can't believe we're saying that already, that this year is wrapping up and coming to an end, you guys. Thank you for being here with us and listening to our episodes, letting us know what you think. We appreciate it very, very much. And we're just glad that we get to do this and get to share this with you guys.
Yeah, so it might not be perfect. It might be makeshift setups. It might be 9:20 p.m. at night. It might be a week late, but we, like Megan said, appreciate you. If there's any ever topics that you want us to touch on more, or that you ever have questions that you want to submit, that we could do a whole episode on questions of different things, that might be something we could try too. Just going forward, yeah, we're really excited for the possibilities of where this podcast could lead us. So please subscribe, please share, comment, tell us your feedback. We love to hear both good and
Some critical feedback.
critical feedback to help us improve, because we want this to be as much of a podcast that we have this community built that's for you and for us. So thank you, everyone. We hope you have a wonderful Christmas and a happy new year. Stay safe, stay healthy, and we will see you in 2024.
Bye, guys. Thank you.